Hello and welcome to How to Be Found Online, a Velocity training course. My name is Anna Marsden and I'm going to be talking to you about content marketing. This session is going to look at content marketing techniques, how to make sure you never run out of things to say, and how to optimize your content through social media. So to get started, what is content marketing? Now, we've heard a lot about content marketing in terms of people blogging, but ultimately content marketing is a marketing technique of creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and acquire a clearly defined audience. Not just that, it has the objective of driving profitable action. So if we take that apart, content marketing is about value, relevancy, and consistency. Why should we care? So in the first course, we talked about websites and content for websites. Content marketing is a great way to pull people to your website. So it can increase your website traffic. It can increase your brand exposure. It can help engage with your community of followers. Remember, if the content is valuable, relevant, and consistent. So it can improve in direct marketing. It can help give you a positive brand experience. Good content should definitely be entertaining, relevant, and useful. Now, an exercise that you can do is think about the types of content that you want to speak on. And remember, it's not about you. Just because you can publish to the internet, to the World Wide Web, doesn't mean you should, and it doesn't mean you should talk about yourself, especially if it's a company website. So your content should be what your followers, what your audience are interested in. Some content examples range from social media, blogs, email marketing, direct marketing, leaflets. But the difference between digital content marketing is that you can now measure, whether it's with Google Analytics or not, you can now measure how long it takes me to spend time on a page. Where do I go after that page you've directed me to? With traditional leaflets, which is not to say you shouldn't use paper and traditional leaflets, they absolutely do have a place. But with a traditional leaflet, you don't know how long it takes me to look at it and throw it in the bin, or even not look at it and throw it in the bin. So with digital assets, you can measure the success of your valuable, relevant, consistent content. In our digital world, the way that we communicate has totally changed. We've never had so much access to information, whether it's on our smartphones, which are mini computers, or whether it's through a desktop or a laptop or a tablet. We have never had the same access to information. Now, a couple of years ago, Google researched into this idea of information for the consumer, and they came up with what they call the zero moment of truth. Now, ZMOT, as they call it, is a really good theoretical understanding of how this access to content and access to information has changed our behaviour as consumers. So, for example, this slide shows, which is taken from a video. Traditionally, marketers understood that you give a stimulus of information to an audience. They then probably go and buy it. There's a bit of information that you want to collect in between, but now the zero moment of truth, there's an extra moment in there. When we ask digitally our friends on social media, we read reviews that are published online, we watch videos on YouTube, we search and we find out information. So ZMOT is this idea that people, consumers like you and me, will search 11 sources of information before we go to buy. So talking about content marketing, you can then see the value of producing relevant, valuable, consistent content that helps your buyer ultimately buy. So with these 11 pieces of information that we read, make sure your content, your blog, your review is one of those 11. So my example would be I'm looking for a new television, a 40-inch LG TV. I know the serial code. I enter that into the search engine, and then I'm bombarded with information, reviews, where I can buy it. I might ask my friends on social media, what do you think of the latest 40-inch LG TV? I will then do this and find 11 sources of information. Taking that example, it's key that if you're writing about, ultimately, if you sell an LG 40-inch TV, you want to make sure that I can find information from you about the TV that you sell. So this should help you in the first exercise, and this would be really good to do in a group. If you have a comms team, a marketing team, it's really important to understand the topics that you're going to talk about. So before I said that content marketing is not about you. It's not about you. What you need to do is come up with some blog ideas, thematic ideas on subjects that you as a company will talk about. But remember, they have to provide value to your customer. They have to be relevant to them and their search arch. So how far down the journey of buying they are. And also it has to be consistent. So think less of the method by which you're going to tell people about something, about a product, about news and reviews, and think about the theme rather than the method. Now, if you do it that way, you might come up with a question very early on. It's really easy to understand what you want to talk to someone about when you know who that person is. The next exercise I would urge you to do is an exercise about who your audience is. So coming back to the content marketing definition from the Content Marketing Institute, you're ultimately creating content because you want a potential customer to do something. Think, who are they? This could be demographics, it could be gender, it could be age here. How old are they? Where do they live? Does it matter? How do they speak? Are they a formal group? Are they not? You might have 1, 2, 3, 4, you might have 10 target audiences. Do this for each one. What do they care about? And this might help you in your content topics. What are their hobbies? What are their causes? Which of your products and which of your services are they interested in? What are you tying them to in terms of your content marketing and your products and services? Then you want to think about where can they be found. If they're found online, are they in a social space? If they're not found online, where are they? Where are you going to target that content? So once you've got an idea of what you're going to say and who you're going to say it to, a good idea is to do a simple strategy. You can do this for your blog, for your social channels, and you can do it for your web pages. And take a look at the table we've got here. It's very clear in terms of aim. You need to have a very clear idea of what you want to get out of this activity. So if you've decided you're going to blog because it's a free activity, think carefully about the time it will take you to do that. Social and blogging are sometimes free, but your time isn't. So really be strict with yourself about what you want to achieve. So what is the desired response from your customer? Do you want them to give you their email? Do you want them to speak to you on the phone? Do you want them to click to a different part of the website? Make sure that there's a call to action in your blog. Make sure you're asking them to do something. Coming back to the content marketing definition, you're producing this valuable, consistent content because you want them to do something. Measuring and resourcing is very important, and be honest about the time you have to do this each week. If you're looking at putting together a strategy for your social media presence, are there any other things that you might want to think about? Are there any other things that you might want to think about for your blog? Are you able to upload directly? Do you have the time? So once you've done these 3 exercises, you should have a good, clear idea of what you're going to write about, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to measure it. But when are you going to do it? What if you've got absolutely no idea? You've got themes of what you're going to talk about, but you've got absolutely no idea of what to write. But you know you've set aside time to write a blog this week, but you're sitting in front of the Word document and the cursor's pinging. To really help you understand that you have loads of stuff to write about and talk about, use a technique that journalists use, which is an on diary. And you can create a simple on diary as the one shown here, with each month representing some sort of activity in your industry. So for example, you might have something to say if you have a conference that happens every year, an annual conference that has an importance in your industry. If you know that that happens in September, then probably August, probably after September, probably during September, you might want to talk about what that conference means to the industry, give away some free ideas. You might want to make sure you're relevant. And using the on diary technique, you can make sure that you're relevant. Again, valuable and relevant and consistent is so important in content marketing. Because ultimately you're giving your customers value. It's not about you. You don't want to be the person that is running their business, but their blog talks about their dog. That's not relevant. A good example of on diary planning came from one of the courses. We had an architect that had been blogging, and she'd planned out the content based on the relevant news that had happened in accordance with the planning permissions for barn conversions. That's very specific. But she wrote a blog so specific about barn conversions that the audience she was trying to target easily found that information. And the information provided such value and relevancy that this architect had a new lead based on that blog. So you're ultimately trying to pull people in to your webpage. The people you're pulling in are those customers. So relevancy and value is so important. You also want to make sure that you're pulling people in away from other competitors. So the blogging system allows you to push information out to deliver back to your website. You don't want people to be hanging out on Facebook or Twitter because you want them to be on your website where you are in control of all the content and publishing. You're not in competition. So you want people to come to your webpage. A great example is when they pick up the phone because what they've read is so valuable to them, as my architect example. So once you've had a good idea of planning on diary, make sure you free up time so that you can respond to what are called off-diary events, anything that happens that's newsworthy. So make sure you always have time to do this if you want to remain relevant. Another thing to remember, which is essential, all information that you're sending out, you want to make sure is brand aligned. Are your colours right? Is your tone right? Do people know it's you as a company that's talking? Because you don't want to go to all the effort of pushing out content for your target audience, not really remember that it was you, your company, that delivered the value in the content marketing. So think about how you look when you send posts out, the brand colours, the brand image, the fonts. Think about your tone of voice. You might want to write something up if you work as a team. Think about how you behave in terms of responding to people if you want responses on a blog. Now, in WordPress, you can choose to have comments left on your blog or not. My advice would be, if you want people to talk to you, talk back. Now, optimizing your blog, we mentioned in the first training session, it's very important that you've got an idea of how humans read, because all the effort you're going to plan the outgoing information, your content marketing, your blogs in this example, will fall on deaf ears or fall on a bounce rate because people don't want to read content that looks like it's big chunks of information. That's why the listicle is so popular. You see 5 best ways to get fit over the summer. Because we like to know as consumers that we only have to read 5 bullet points. So think about how you construct your information so people are eager to click on your blog that takes them to your website. Now, I showed this in a previous session, which is the Nielsen research about eye tracking on a digital page. Bear this in mind when you're putting together the content. You don't want to have the most important call to action at the bottom of the page at the right-hand side, because the F shape is how the eye tracks a page. make sure that you look at this and see how you can optimize the spacing of the content for humans. Now, as we're talking about optimizing the content, again, this is taking from the first session, you want to make sure that the information that you're providing in your blogs is picked up by the search engines. This also reinforces how people read web pages and websites. We don't anymore go to the homepage first, because if we're looking for relevant content, we'll Google it, we'll search online. And if your page of information in your blog is relevant, I jump straight into your website. I don't go to the homepage first. So, to really optimize the effort you've gone to in terms of content marketing, you want to make sure that each page is optimized as much as possible. So if we have a look at the table here, you want to make sure that the keyword is in the headline, the page title, the page unique resource locator, which is the address, in the content, in the alternative text for the images, and in the meta description. Finally, you have gone to the effort to understand what you're going to write, who you're targeting, when you're going to say it. So the mechanism by which you distribute your content is very important. One of the key takeaways I hope you get from this is that you don't automatically send out blog posts with "read my blog." Why? You need to convince your audience that you're delivering value. Give people a reason to click on the page. Give people a reason to come to your website. Make it relevant. So looking at this slide here, there's lots of ways you can push out your notifications about your webpage, about your blog, about your news. But make sure you do it in a way which has a very specific call to action, not just read my latest blog. You can do it through Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any other community chat rooms that you may be part of. But the most important thing is that it's valuable and consistent and relevant. And so there's nothing worse than false advertising a blog that you've gone to the effort of producing. Make sure that you do get that client that the architect got, and that you're doing that by delivering value in the content that you've constructed. So how to be found online? My interpretation is pull people into your website. Make sure that they can find you via the content that you deliver.